Chapter 9. The Demons of Fire and Ice. We had spent nearly 3 years fighting lesser demons that had been attracted by the death clock's call. We had rescued souls and had gotten stronger. I was getting extremely excited to face death again. I wanted him to break Fenrir's chains and I was going to force him if I had to. Agatha had spent her 3 years of training in meditation. She had a book filled with powerful spells, and she had nearly 1,000 years of witchcraft knowledge. She just could not manifest the energy to wield them. Since someone had taken her right eye, he had basically sealed away her ability to generate magic. Agatha and I became friendly, but she was pretty wrapped up with her meditational training for most of it. Odin and I grew super close during this time. I sparred with him and Hugin nearly every day. Fenrir and I learned a lot about Viking war tactics and demon slaying by following his lead. We would often sit around the table, and he would tell me grand tales of his adventures with Thor on his ship Yggdrasil. Father Felipe and Sister Grace had left for the first 2 years of the countdown. They returned to their church and did their jobs as Grimms. They had gotten incredibly strong by the time they returned. Sister Grace was just as hyperactive as ever and Father Felipe was just as silly. Even though we had not had a lot of time to get to know each other, it felt like they were old friends the day they returned. We laughed and played with Fenrir as imps and yelled at us to be quiet as to not bother Miss Agatha. Lesser demons were starting to come more often and in larger numbers. The close of the death clock counted down to 0. We would slay them and rescue the souls with little difficulty. Agatha never once woke up from her meditations to offer a hand. She had ordered Impson to hide whenever trouble appeared, so he was never of any help. It was 3 months until the death clock reached 0, when Ifrit showed up. It was mid-spring when he arrived with an army of 100 lesser demons. They were all diverse sizes of giants with different heads of animals. They encircled us in my village. They sat unmoving for weeks. Loud roars could be heard from all directions at all hours of the day. The sounds kept us on guard. The entire time we could see one demon with a large flaming wing sitting on top of a distant hill. Large horns of fire stretched over his beast-like head and wrapped around his back. They made him appear as if he was cloaked in fire. Even though he sat some distance away from our village, I constantly felt the sharp pierce of his gaze as he watched us. This demon is smarter than any other I've seen, I had admitted to Odin. We had just finished sparring together. Indeed, my boy, those are the ones that are dangerous. Odin spoke as we walked towards the church. We had set up base in the back rooms they had there. Come on Fenrir, I had called out to my friend. He came running up a hill. He had gotten so much larger than before. He looked mythical in stature. We had both gotten so much stronger. Hey you two. I heard Sister Grace call out as we entered the chapel. Any news on the one-winged demon? Have we seen any other signs of winged demons? Father Felipe asked. He was rocking back and forth in a chair in the corner. I turned and set Behemoth down next to the door. The silver-bladed scythe with the golden vine-wrapped handle gleamed in the sunlight. It reflected the face of the blue ox. There has been no movement from the one-winged. As of this morning there were no signs of more demons coming. Hugin should be able to do another flyover when the sun sets. Odin grunted and plopped down in a chair at the large wood table. He kicked his feet up onto it. He will not have to dearie, Agatha said as she walked into the building for the first time in over a year. Welcome back miss, may I fetch anything for you? Impson inquired as he bowed to greet her. She walked over and sat down at the table. There is a second one-winged demon coming, she spoke as pulled the leather-bound book out from the strap on her thigh. How do you know? I asked as I joined everyone else at the table. Fenrir took his usual spot in a bed we made for him in the chapel. He was too large to fit through the door to come back into the living quarters. Another one of Beelzebub's gifts. She smiled and winked as she pulled her finger up to her lips. A loud explosion came from outside and we all ran to see what was happening. A large pillar of steam was floating in the sky as water drops fell to the ground. Moments later a large boulder made of ice crashed into a building. It is here. This will become a turf war. Split up and stay low. Do not engage any winged demons. Take out lesser demons as they fight each other and break off from the rest. Do not put yourself in needless danger. Odin shouted as Hugin transformed into the half-complete spear, and he ran off towards the west side of the village towards the sea. Sister Grace and I will head south towards the village entrance and keep tabs on the fire one-winged, Father Felipe said. He whipped his chain and his coffin launched into the air. He spun it around until it landed neatly on his back. I shall take a look at this newcomer. Agatha giggled to herself as she walked north with Impson. The sway of her hips made her black-laced dress brush his cheek. They were heading towards the forest. We get to go east then. I whistled and nodded to Fenrir. He barked and we took off into the village. We jumped from rooftop to rooftop as we made our way through the village towards the fields. I could see hundreds of lesser demons fighting each other. Hundreds of white flames were dancing and were being absorbed into the mouths of various other demons. We ran until we came to the old mill. Let's hang out here until if you get lured over by our scent, I whispered to Fenrir. He nodded as if he understood and crawled next to me as crept behind the building. A loud roar and wood exploded around us. I reflexively held Behemoth and blocked the blow. Fenrir leapt up and sliced the demon's head off with a single swift kick. It burst and we sucked in the souls. Good, we can do this if we can just take one or two one at a time, I said, as I juggled the silver scythe around. I was getting pumped. Fenrir barked and the sound drew a couple more demons into our area. We dispatched them with ease. Behemoth roared as the souls were absorbed. Tyrell, watch out. I heard Father Felipe and Sister Grace call out to me. In a moment I was engulfed in flames. The searing pain I felt all over my body as it scorched my skin was unbearable. I was about to pass out, but I grit my teeth and strengthened my grip around Behemoth. Blue smoke began to dance out of the scythe and it snaked its way up and around my arm. It enveloped me and protected me from the fire. Good thing Odin was able to teach you basic control over a great beast. Behemoth laughed. I saw his large grin reflect briefly in the blade. I jumped back and rejoined with Fenrir, Sister Grace, and Father Felipe. Mima, would you be a doll and go join the lovely Miss Agatha? He asked Sister Grace and she turned and kicked him into the ground. Okay, she said innocently. She retrieved her chains and her white coffin returned to her back. She ran back into the village and a few lesser demons chased after her. I turned my attention back to the smoldering crater which had lit me on fire. Strolling out of it was the demon with the one flaming wing. It had a grin on its beast-like face. I never would have thought it would be Shiva who would come to dispute this territorial claim against me. It spoke. The demon stretched and its joints cracked. It snapped and contorted its body and grew an additional 3 feet. He now stood at a staggering height of 12 feet. His large flaming horns grew larger and burned hotter. It looked curiously at Fenrir, Felipe, and I. This place has 3 grims? It asked as it walked towards us. Its muscles began to bulge as it continued to grow. The ground began to shake under its footsteps. The wing burned brightly on its back. It changed colors from red to blue. The demon roared and the lesser demons retreated from the area. No need for them to get in our way. It scoffed and smoke shot from its nostrils. It moved fast. It was nearly invisible as it darted around. A bright streak of light could be seen as a blur from its flaming horns. I felt a sharp pain as it slashed and cut my chest pretty deeply with one of its claws. Ifrit is the name of the demon who will be taking over your land today, the demon whispered into my ear. I had not even noticed it appear right next to me. I jumped up and swung at it with Behemoth. Ifrit faded out of sight, and I missed him. Fenrir, Myko, I called out. Fenrir joined in and we both lunged an assault of attacks onto the demon. He dodged each one of blows. Father Felipe joined in and gave chase after us. Fenrir and I leapt out of the way, and he flung his coffin into the demon's face. You got him, I cheered. Not over yet, Puro, he said nodding at the demon as it got up from the ground. You two are becoming an effort. He snarled while showing his fangs. He spit and a tiny flame hit the ground. The demon began roaring loudly and its wing began to burn fiercer. It turned from blue to green to purple. The flames on its body caused the air around Ifrit to look blurry. I could feel the heat from where we stood, a distance away. I guess I will have to work for it, as they say. Ifrit's voice was deeper and its muscles bulged as he seemed to grow more. My go. Now father, I yelled as I lunged with Behemoth towards the demon. I connected barely and cut its arm. I saw blood trickle down its arm. Fenrir thrashed at Ifrit's throat and missed. Father Felipe was able to land another hit on the demon with his coffin. The demon launched backwards and fell into the dirt with a thud. I saw his flame change colors and dim for a moment. Bastards, Ifrit growled. He launched a full-on assault on us. I did my best to dodge and weave out of his strikes, but he cut me many times shallowly. I got kicked back into the mill and I could hear clashing as Father Felipe fought one-on-one with Ifrit. I watched for a moment, impressed at how swiftly and nimbly the father seemed to move. The demon was striking him relentlessly, but not once was he able to hit Father Felipe. Wow, was he always this tough? I wondered as I climbed back out of the rubble. I ran back in and joined Fenrir and Father Felipe in their assault. Slowly we wore the beast down. Strike after cut after bite after slash. We brought the demon to its knees. Its flame had nearly flickered out. I was about to bring the wrath of Behemoth down onto the demon's neck, when an icicle knocked me to the ground. Stay out of this can. Ifrit growled at the one-winged ice demon that was descending from the sky. The demon had the body of a woman. She was pale blue like she had stood out in the coldest of winter nights. A beautiful dress of ice which complemented her lovely curves. She had the head of an eagle. Pewter, what did you do to my grace? Father Felipe asked. The nun? She was nothing to me. I left her and that witch in awe of my power, and then I came here. She waved her hand unamused at him. She waved her hand and 100 shards of ice appeared in the air around her. She danced and one by one she sent them soaring towards us. I jumped and dodged them as I ran towards cover. Fenrir was dodging them with ease. Father Felipe had hidden himself behind his coffin with the silver bones blocking the ice. Once the barrage ended, we turned and launched an assault on the demon can. We fought her with all our might and had only gotten a couple of blows in. She was much tougher than the Ifrit we had just faced. I saw a lightning bolt fly past hers and connect with Can. She seemed to shatter and reform as she screeched in horror. The lightning bolt of a spear transformed into a beautiful white raven, and it soared and dove back into Odin's hands. He joined us outside the mill in the fields. A lot of damage had been done to the area around us. The mill was crumbling and had caught fire. How many Grims does this village have? Ifrit growled as he got up slowly with his hand over his chest. His flames were roaring back to life now. Okime are you? Rain please? I heard Agatha's distinct accent speak and a torrent of water enveloped the Ifrit. Okime are you? I had never heard a word that sounded quite like that before. I looked over and a large black serpent was crawling out of the leather-bound book. The serpent slithered up and situated itself on Agatha's shoulders. A small vortex of water formed and battered the Ifrit. It erupted into a bright burst of light and hundreds of souls danced into the air. The black serpent sat up and sucked in all the souls in one single gulp. It appeared to nod towards Agatha, and it slithered back into the pages of the leather-bound book. I turned my attention and quickly lunged at the can with Behemoth's blue smoke shrouding my body. I slashed out and the ice shattered with a loud ringing sound. Another burst of bright light exploded into the sky and hundreds more souls danced into the sky. I held my scythe up and Behemoth roared as the souls got pulled into the blade. Puro, Father Felipe said. We took a moment to look around the now torn up fields. Looks like we will have to wait until Sunday before we can have fresh cabbage, Odin said in a shocked loud voice. I looked around at all the giant lesser demons that were turning around and leaving. Why are they retreating? Should we give chase? I asked as I was ready to chase after them. Number. We have won this battle, Impson said in his casual voice as he reappeared next to Agatha. Lesser demons will avoid this place now that the Grim here has defeated not one but two one-winged demons. There are not many Grims in purgatory who can do that. He spoke as he cleaned his glasses. A tiny white cloth was held in tiny green fingers. Who is hungry? Odin roared. We shall celebrate our victory. Hurrah! He cheered and wailed. Fenrir howled and joined in Odin's enthusiasm. We should still be weary of more demons coming to take over the clock, but we should head back to the church, Agatha said, as she returned the book to her thigh. We went back to the church, and Impson prepared some food for all of us. We talked about the two demons and how surprisingly easy it was for us to dispatch them. I was super curious and excited to ask Agatha about how her training had been going and how she had managed to summon such a powerful-looking spell. I made a contract with my great beast Okaimayu. He simply provides the mana for the spells I cast. I can only harness a small amount of his mana for now, but I will get there. Worry not about that, dearies, Agatha told us. She walked over and poked me gently on the nose. We sat and laughed late into the night before finally taking shifts to sleep and keep watch. I laid in bed for hours that night reflecting on how excited I was at the newly found strength that Fenrir and I had achieved. I was extremely excited for death to arrive and make me a Grim. Since we killed two one-winged demons in a single day, we had no other demons visit. The day that the clock struck 0, the first resting soul arrived in my village's graveyard.